It's 5 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order now. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. The territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Huron-Wendat peoples in the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture, remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Thank you for coming today. We have full attendance today. May I have approval of the agenda, please? Trustee Cook, seconded by Trustee Burgess. All in support? Thank you. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest today? Seeing none. May I have approval of the minutes from the Policy and Bylaw meeting of March 4th? Trustee Cook, seconded by Trustee Burgess. All in support? That's moved. We have delegations today. We'll start with the first one. Megan Jubenville on the regulation, gender identity, and gender expression in schools. You've got the...
Madam Chair, just a point of order. We had an addendum, right?
Yes.
So we have two
Oh, I
delegations?
apologize. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Megan. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to address this committee today. My name is Megan Jubenville. I use she, her pronouns, and I would like to discuss the Gender Identity and Expression in Schools Regulation, reference number RAD 65, and the importance of protecting the rights of gender diverse students in our schools. I am coming to you as an administrator of a provincial 2S LGBTQIA+ mental health nonprofit organization, a public health graduate, and as a former Greater Essex County District School Board student who benefited from 2S LGBTQIA+ programming and groups when I was in high school. I understand that the school board's current policy recognizes the student's right to self-identify, express, and define their lived gender identity and expression while attending school, to keep their gender identity confidential no matter their age, and to use the washrooms and change rooms that correspond with their lived gender identity. I am here today to implore the Greater Essex County District School Board to continue upholding the human rights of our 2S LGBTQIA+ students by maintaining these provisions. Since the call for feedback regarding this regulation was made public, there have been individuals voicing opposition to provisions within this regulation. These individuals believe that students should not be able to use facilities like washrooms that correspond with their gender identity, and that schools should be forced to disclose a student's chosen name and pronouns to their parents without their consent. As a recent study and now a professional, as a recent student and now a professional working with queer and trans individuals every day, I can attest that changes like these would be catastrophic to the safety and well-being of queer and trans students, and they are scared. Providing a safe, accepting, and confidential school environment is critical in promoting the health and wellness of all students, especially 2S LGBTQIA+ students, and the evidence to support this is overwhelming. Unfortunately, less than 40% of high school-age students come from homes that are accepting of their gender identity, indicating that for many queer and trans students, school is one of the only places where they can express themselves safely and freely. Furthermore, suicide rates among the transgender community are approximately 8 times higher than those of the general population, and gender-affirming school environments have been known to significantly reduce these rates. After Saskatchewan and New Brunswick implemented policies stating that schools did not need a student's consent to disclose their chosen name and pronoun to their families, many of our students and teachers began to fear that similar policies would be implemented in Ontario. Not only does this blatantly disregard the student's privacy and personal agency, but this would also pose significant safety risk to the approximately 60% of students who do not come from affirming homes. There are some who believe that allowing gender diverse students to use the washrooms and change rooms that correspond with their identity would pose a safety risk to other students, or that allowing a student to use a different name and pronouns at school is implying that the school board is keeping secrets from parents. This could not be further from the truth. These beliefs are offensive assumptions rooted not in evidence or in experience, but in misinformation and disinformation. Prohibiting trans and gender diverse students from using the name, pronouns, and facilities that correspond with their gender identity would amplify the already alarmingly high rates of transphobic violence, harassment, and bullying that are within our schools and pose significant health and safety risks for trans students. Furthermore, ample evidence suggests policies that celebrate gender diversity are beneficial to all students, not just to us LGBTQIA+ students. It is imperative that our school board's policies, while being informed by a wide variety of stakeholders, including parents, must ultimately be backed by evidence, the experiences of our students, and the protection of human rights. And as you move to update the Greater Essex County District School Board's regulation on gender identity and expression in schools, I urge you to keep the points I have made in mind and prioritize the safety, well-being, agency, and human rights of our students. Thank you. And that's all
Thank
I
you
have.
very much. Does anyone have any questions of the speaker? Trustee Burgess?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, thanks for the presentation, but have you presented at other school boards or other agencies that have looked at this kind of policy, et cetera? And
I personally haven't, no.
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Selena Hamilton. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, members of Policy and Bylaw Committee. Tonight, I wish to discuss the integration of feedback from the recent public consultation held by the Greater Essex County District School Board from February 10th to 24th. This appears on tonight's agenda as item I-2. Item I-2 begins with a memorandum addressed to the members of the Policy and Bylaw Committee introducing Regulation R.AD 65. The paragraph labeled Purpose reads, as per our consultation process, the revised regulation was shared with union partners and community partners. Additionally, the revised regulation was posted for public consultation. Feedback included some opposition to the regulation, which highlighted concerns as to parental knowledge, gender that is non-binary, and use of washroom facilities based on gender identity. Please note that some of the opposition feedback included pre-formed responses that were continuously reiterated. Feedback also included significant support acknowledging the importance of prioritizing inclusivity, privacy, student mental health and well-being, respect for student autonomy, as well as empowering students to be themselves. A clear issue with this terminology used to distinguish some opposition and significant support. Neither some nor significant represent numerical values or percentages, making them inherently vague and subjective. These ambiguous classifications are highly susceptible to personal bias and manipulation. Partiality is also apparent when describing the opposition's concerns as to versus the support acknowledging the importance of. The purpose of public consultation is to gather community perspectives and concerns, not to collect endorsement or construct legitimacy. If these remarks were public feedback only, why do we not read the importance of parental knowledge? Certain public feedback was labeled as pre-formed responses that were continuously reiterated, implying that when multiple individuals provide the same input, it may be regarded as invalid and without merit. This characterization raises concerns about whether collective agreement is being unfairly dismissed. The implication undermines the collective voice of those who share the same perspective. It is possible that a response may be drafted with such care and deliberation that many people resonate with the statements and sentiments from top to bottom. Despite all the input received from the public, both positive and negative, there is very little change to the regulation since posted for public consultation. Strange, because anyone who has lived in Windsor the past 3 years would consider R.AD 65 to be extremely controversial. Where is the transparency in the assessment of public feedback? What are the actual percentages of support versus opposition? The Good Governance Guide for Trustees, School Boards, Directors of Education, and Communities, 2022 to 2026, on page 151, discusses transparency. It reads, Be transparent. Board information, business practices, and decision-making processes should be highly visible, easily accessible, and accountable and open to participation. Be accountable. Demonstrate that the board leadership is committed to engaging with all communities within the board and be clear about roles and responsibilities for maintaining communication. Let communities know that their input makes a difference in outcomes. Have a clear process to express concern after decisions are made. After any public debate is complete and decisions have been made, ensure that the process used to reach the decision is known. Online petitions publicly display the number of collected signatures, while news media polls present percentage-based results for public reference. One shouldn't the Windsor-Essex public be afforded the same transparency when shaping policies and regulations that impact our children's education? For example, the student census conducted by Turner Consulting Group in September 2023 identified that 28% of respondents were Christian and 27% of respondents held a non-Christian faith, such as Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu. That means 55% of the student base would submit strong oppositional feedback to a public consultation regarding Regulation RAD 65. Tonight, I strongly encourage this committee to publish empirical data reflecting the outcomes of public consultation. Transparency in these metrics is essential for informed decision-making. I'm sure it's our united desire to respect family values and the many cultures and faiths in Windsor-Essex. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of clarification? Trustee Burgess?
Thanks, Madam Chair, for that. Thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I think I get the gist, but your last point, you were talking about the information that we received about declarations of faith for those who wanted to declare their faith. And you said a certain percentage of Christian and Muslims and Hindu?
Yes.
And you came to the conclusion that 55%?
Those were the statistics right out of the Turner consultation report.
Correct. My question is, are you assuming that every Christian, every Muslim, and every Hindu are strongly opposed? Is that what you said? Because I think that's what I heard you say.
Well,
55% of declared folks who answered the Turner Consulting survey would be strongly, could you reread that section, please? for me?
certainly. The student census conducted by Turner Consulting Group in September 2023 identified that 28% of respondents were Christian and 27% of respondents held a non-Christian faith, such as Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu. That means 55% of the student base would submit strong oppositional feedback to a public consultation regarding Regulation RAD 65.
Thank you, ma'am. That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to make a statement, just for clarification, that when people identify themselves as Christian, it could be of so many different varieties of declared faith. They're not monolithic, and neither are people who identify as Muslim, monolithic in their thoughts, and neither are Hindu and Sikh. So I just want to say that, thank you for the presentation, but I don't accept that 55% would be strongly opposed. That's not the feedback that I've certainly received in phone calls, emails, messages, all the different kinds of ways that people have reached out to me.
Mm-hmm. There was
And not for debate, just as a clarification that the 55% is not monolithic.
All right, thank you.
Show us the data.
Thank you for your presentation. Can you please ensure that Ms. LeBoeuf has a copy?
She already does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move forward with staff reports. We don't have any. New business. The first is to recommend that the Policy and Bylaw Committee, that the Policy and Bylaw Committee recommend to the board that policy and regulation vandalism and theft be rescinded. Do I have a mover? Trustee Cook, a seconder. Trustee Burgess, all in support? Oh, Trustee Burgess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question because I see that we're basically moving it into, obviously, the duty of a principal, the responsibility of a principal or a designate to act with the appropriate superintendent of education. I just wanted to know, it said pertinent information contained within the regulation will be incorporated into the administrative procedure as appropriate, but we didn't get like a draft of the admin procedure. Is there something, what wouldn't be pertinent that would be included in what we have? Or can we just assume that it's basically going to move wholesale into an admin procedure?
So I'll start if Superintendent Armstrong has anything to add, but through you, Madam Chair, basically everything that is in the policy would move into the admin procedure.
That would be my only question, would be, is there something that's not going to? And have we actually abandoned something, some part of it? No. Thank you. I appreciate that. I support this.
Recommendation that the Policy and Bylaw Committee recommend to the board that the regulation gender identity and gender expression in schools be approved as presented. Do I have a mover? Trustee Cook, a seconder, Trustee Burgess. Any questions? Trustee Burgess.
Thanks again, Madam Chair. I have a question. There were many submissions, as noted, asking questions, having a stance. But one that came to mind was how we've positioned this particular regulation, in that it cites, I'm going to just read because I can't quite remember all of it. The last page of ours, the statement where it says every student has the right to dress and express themselves in alignment with their gender identity. Schools are gender neutral regarding expectations of student attire as per the dress code protocol. That last bit, but that last section. The last page sets out, that was just the last paragraph, it really meant the last page, sets out important inclusive design rights for students, which are absolute rights. They're not accommodations. And so the question comes in that the first part of the regulation suggests that there's a number of inherent student rights that are recognized both in the regulation itself, in human rights case law, and by the Ontario Human Rights Commission as there are accommodations, but they need to be requested in writing. The regulation conflicts, this writer said, with itself in this way, and also conflicts with the law. So do we have to, for accommodations, does it have to be in writing as an accommodation, or is it just a human right and they can just declare their human rights? So that's a question for admin, if I could, ma'am.
Superintendent Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. This policy redesign is aligned with multiple other boards across the province that I've listed in the memo, as well as gone through legal multiple times to ensure that we are adhering to the Ontario Human Rights Code. A policy and regulation are the guide in the system to support people in doing the work. And the request for an accommodation is just formalizing the process for students, particularly students who identify as trans, to ensure that the process is being followed. If a student says, I want you to use they, them with me as my pronouns, they don't necessarily have to put it into accommodation, okay? But this is a formalized process to support students in their agency and voice in what they want to see happen for themselves.
So to be clear, the rights that they have to use their washroom, go into rooms, confidentiality, all of those things are inherent rights. So
Yes, ma'am.
they're inherent rights, so they must be accommodated.
We
Under
will
the
not tolerate any noise from the background, please. This is a business
So I have the
meeting.
floor and I'm asking a question.
Exactly.
I'm getting an answer from the superintendent. Go on, I'm sorry.
Under the Ontario Human Rights Code, that's right. A student can identify a gender opposite to their gender at birth and can use that bathroom appropriately. It is asking for an accommodation. Legal suggests that an accommodation should be put into place. However, if a child does ask for that, it has to be abided by under the Ontario Human Rights Code.
So it's a belt and suspenders approach kind of thing. It's an
Exactly.
inherent right, but we encourage please commit to it, sort of thing, so that we have it on record and that we understand that we just didn't hear wrong, or it's not something that is going to change necessarily in the same day.
And right now, that is what's happening, is if students want to use a different pronoun, whatever it might be, it is being honored right now, no accommodation. But this is the process that's followed. Other boards, legal has suggested it, and so it needs to be abided by under the Ontario Human Rights Code.
Right, it's an inherent right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So it's, the recommendation's been moved, seconded, all in support? So that moves forward. If we get one more outburst from the gallery, you'll be asked to leave. This is your final warning. Next is a recommendation. The Policy and Bylaw Committee recommend to the board that the policy and regulation trustee pregnancy, parental adoption, and infant child care be approved as presented. Trustee Cook, Trustee Burgess, and then Trustee Burgess has a question.
No, just a typo, a little tiny typo, number 10, just intends to intend. Last line on page 17.
So move, seconded, all in support? So that one moves forward as well. Trustee motions for consideration. There was one, we have K, trustee notice of motion from Trustee Burgess that the Policy and Bylaw Committee deliberate on a bylaw revision to include an item of notice of trustee questions to be included in the draft agenda of regular Greater Essex County District School Board and standing committees. Now, that's just a notice of motion. That's just something we put forward. Do we have any announcements for this meeting? Seeing none, we adjourn at 5:20. Thank you very much.